Polson Brothers Logging Company began business in 1895 in Hoquiam, Washington. The city of Hoquiam began as a manufacturing and export center for forest products, including pulp and paper, on the Hoquiam River adjacent to Aberdeen, Washington. The falling crew consisted of fallers and buckers. Fallers cut down trees and buckers sawed the felled trees into lengths. Loggers used 7, 8, or 9-foot long crosscut saws with a man on each end. These loggers faced great danger from trees falling or rolling on them. Hello again, everyone. This is Guy Hemlin with Trailkeepers of Oregon. I'm a crew leader with TKO, and this is the 7th of a series of training videos covering intermediate level crosscut Sawyer information. It's important to mention, however, that this material does not substitute nor qualify for an official Forest Service sanctioned Sawyer training course. In this module, we will review hazards at the job site, an environment assessment, including log binds, and discuss how they collectively factor into the Sawyer team go, no-go decision process, with the understanding that these are guidelines to assist the SAW team lead and the SAW team. Hazards can usually be mitigated once they are understood. The trail safety adage of look up, look down, look around will reveal many crew safety hazards, including snags, widowmaker limbs, spring poles, buried branches, and upslope hazard rocks, including torpedo logs. Inspect the root ball to determine if it is attached or detached. It may appear to be attached, but that can be deceiving. Once you have determined the binds, bearing, and pivot points, determine how the binds will change as the log is cut. Plan for log movement and determine how the log will move and where the cut pieces will go. Establish escape routes and safe areas for the crew. This should all be discussed with the crew. Continue to review the log and cut pieces to ensure they move according to plan, or stop and reanalyze. These are some of the key indicators for the fiber strength of a log. Look at this dead snag. Could it fall in the crew work area? If you roll a log against the bottom of a snag, the top will likely snap off and come toward you, or the whole snag might fall in your direction. A hazardous snag in the work area must be mitigated for the SAW team safety. Sap rot conchs, or sap root feeding holes, are another indicator of a hazard tree. Sap rot is not a tree disease. It is part of the natural decomposition process after the tree dies. Feeding holes are one other indicator of a dead tree. Take into account when working around these trees, as their strength may be compromised. Also, when bucking logs with sap rot, they will not behave the same as sound wood when cut. Wedges are less effective as the compressive strength of the wood deteriorates as it decomposes. You may need to use an axe to clean up unsound wood to get to heartwood, where you can saw or allow for the use of wedges. Here's a good example of a very dangerous spring pole with a lot of energy locked into the bend. Notching in the inside center of the bend is the best practice to release energy. Never cut one end or the other. For TKO, many of our work trails have fire-compromised snags and are a particular hazard for a saw crew. Most roots have been burned and can contribute to tree fall at any time. Root wads can stand up when cut. Plan for movement and make sure no one is behind or under a root wad. Control the cutting area, especially around the root wad area. The cut plan must address the release of energy with a blowdown, especially when the root wad is detached or suspended. The root wad can also have roots still attached to the ground and be fixed. It will have little movement. These fixed root wads can serve as an anchor, but never trust a root wad. There is a lot of weight and forces on a root wad, especially on a slope. Now, just how did the Sawyer team saw this log? This is from the Trapper Creek Wilderness area in Washington. What is the cut sequence and the type of cuts that you would recommend? Here are most of the elements that go into a saw team's deliberation in the go, no-go decision process. If necessary, it is perfectly acceptable and actually a recommended good practice for a saw team lead to collaborate with more experienced sawyers. Remember, the go, no-go decision process is an interplay of job site complexity versus the lead sawyer's qualifications. Certainly, team experience is an important factor. The requirements of competency versus one's qualifications are subjective. But if you have any doubt, seek advice. The overall job site complexity may require assistance from more experienced sawyers, especially if the proficiency of the saw team requires it. Note the WTA guidelines for roughly determining a C log, or when a B sawyer must request assistance from a more qualified C sawyer. These are rough guidelines, but can quickly aid a saw team in the go, no-go decision process. Now here's an example to apply the go, no-go guidelines. What would you do? Here we have a detached root ball, which is upslope to the left on a 60-degree slope. Because the saw team could not determine if the root ball was attached, they assumed it was not and would slide roll downhill towards the saw crew. Mitigation was to cut a step in the hazard log on the Wyeth Trail in 2018. Come join us for some crosscut saw log out fun.